Why Russia no longer needs Europe that got on the wrong side of history. Asia's emerging single market is what Russia is dealing with. Dominant power and the functioning of the free market in a multipolar world. Historian Thomas Carlyle wrote in the 19th century that a stable and at the same time anarchically free market needed a constable. That is the point, the joint of power that the liberal journalists of the 1990s hated in the first round of globalization. Freedom in the market exists as long as there is a dominant power to restrain competition within healthy frameworks. Without it, the market falls apart and a war begins to install a new policeman for the free operation of the market. Europe is lost to Russia, which is logically driven to expand trade beyond its southern borders. Russia, without coercion, has several $billions worth of commodities from the energy resources in Europe. The only guarantee was a commitment to international law as it developed after the Second World War. The sense of a strong Russian presence in Europe gave birth to a belief in the inviolability of truly mutual beneficial bilateral trade for Europe and Russia. But the reality is that Russia has not had a strong presence in Europe for a long time. The United States has such a presence in Europe, not Russia. Therefore, the United States naturally seeks to drive its competitors out of the market on its behalf on such terms as are beneficial to itself and no one else. This is the classical application of principle regarding dominant power and market relations. Economy, markets, and military power. In economic theory, unduly little attention is paid to the importance of military power in the economy. Not only is military spending the main and often the only source of technological progress and the most important driver of economic growth, at the same time military power is the only guarantor of the security of investments and economic interests of countries. Like it or not, that has been the case throughout recorded human history, and there is no reason to doubt that it will continue to be so. Rearrangement of trade flows. From this it follows that Europe, as an important market, is practically lost for Russia, since it cannot really rely on some dominant regulator presence of bilateral relations. The western border, which has been Russia's most important economic lung since Peter the Great, will now have to give priority to the southern border, where there is no entrenched political situation against Russia's interest. Rather, Russia trade flow are returning to the configuration that existed before the 18th century, when Persia and other southern countries, Persia meaning today's Iran, and other southern countries were Russia's main economic partners. Post-European architecture. Multipolarity has not worked in Europe. Even bipolarity did not succeed, except in the pathological sense, but multipolarity can of course become the basis of the post-European architecture of Russia's economic security, but not in the west, but on its southern borders. There is no dominant power in the south of Eurasia. NATO positions in the regions, thanks to Turkey, resemble a game of broken telephone. In Afghanistan, the West failed no less, if not more miserably, than the USSR and the British Empire before it. In fact, the American presence in the region is limited to the green zone of Baghdad and the remaining sympathy for the dollar in the post-Soviet space. Even former satellites like Saudi Arabia are increasingly disrespecting Washington. Thus, there is no ruler in Eurasia, but there are several centers that represent the multipolar world today. Turkey in the extreme west of the East, Arab world, Russia, Iran, India, Pakistan, China, Central and Southeast Asia. Everyone drives their own politics and plays their own games. If we succeed in creating a truly functional multipolar system in Eurasia, then the chances of expanding it over time to the entire world will increase. The disadvantages of multiple poles and the creation of a single market. There are many advantages to multipolarity, but there are also obvious disadvantages, especially in the economic field. When there are many constables, it's not clear whose demand they obey. The economic ship of multipolarity will take off only if it's possible to create a single market that will operate with more or less generally accepted principles. Here we do not need a Western-centric but a multipolar trade organization, its own economic architecture, independent of the pro-American IMF and other institutions for the organization of economic life. And finally, Russia needs Russian major power to protect the new zone of economic prosperity from the illegal actions of third parties. The nascent New Order, in fact, the construction of the New World Order has been underway for some time. After all, the Asian States Union, SCO, as a prototype of a multipolar political organization, was not created yesterday. The creation of a natural gas hub in Turkey is part of the new non-West trade infrastructure. Russia's trade with Europe was very convenient for the participants. Natural gas was delivered over land through a reliable distribution system. It was convenient to buy European products in small lots, transporting them along a developed transport network. Export financing in Europe is well supported by the financial system. Eurasian trade has so far been deprived of such advantages. Literal replication of European logistics is hardly possible or desirable. A more diversified infrastructure is needed, including rail and sea routes, the creation of regional distribution hubs, and of course new motorways to the south. The Chinese road, with one modification, and it's clear that Russia's move to trade across its southern border coincide with China's One Belt, One Road program, like two pieces of a puzzle. One with important modification. In Chinese perception, the trade routes go from China to Europe. In the new Russian version, intra-regional trade may become more important than trade with the West for all participants. This is from Banking News Greece, and I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.